Hey, how y'all doing? How y'all doing? Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Y'all got anything y'all want for Christmas? Y'all got anything that y'all want for the New Year's? I would like to talk about something that I wish would happen, but I mean, we shall see. I've talked about it a lot about. I mean, there's been big news these past several months about Alabama's congressional maps and districts, about how conservatives have gerrymandered the districts so much in their favor that it's effectively silenced a large part of voters, cutting lines through humongous portions of majority black populations to make sure through zigging and zagging that there's only one majority black district in the state of Alabama. I mean, I'm willing to bet they try to figure out a way to where there was zero majority black districts, but that probably would have been too obvious, I guess. It's the main reason why, even though 1/3 of Alabama is left leaning, the state has maintained its overwhelmingly Republican supermajority stronghold. You know it's bad when when the conservative Supreme Court, the same one who overturned Roe v. Wade and affirmative action, you know it's bad when they rule that Alabama's congressional maps are unconstitutionally gerrymandered. You know it's bad when that Supreme Court says, "Nah, fam, y'all gonna have to redraw them lines." And did Bama say, "Okay, our bad"? I mean, we will get right on it. You think so, since the Alabama government and that Supreme Court is line up so well in ideology and political positions. But of course not. Bama went straight Bama. They said, "Nah, we ain't gonna do that. You can't make us. We dare defend our rights." They had a deadline to turn in a new map and for approval, and the map they turned in not only did not create the second black majority district, it actually diluted the black population of the one black majority district. Uh, See, Bama is going to Bama. Hallelujah and roll tide. So a special master was appointed to redraw the lines of the congressional districts, and think of all the taxpayer money that was wasted on that clusterfuck. The same people who bitch about their tax money going to Ukraine or going to people they deem less don't mind when their tax money is used on frivolous lawsuits and defying the Supreme Court. The same people who say, "Well, aren't we helping our people here?" and then bitch when we do try to help our people here, don't mind when our tax money is flushed down a fucking toilet fighting a losing battle trying to silence the voice of the people. So now we have the same number of congressional districts as always, but less gerrymandered a little bit as before. So there may be a chance to add a Democrat seat to our representatives, but that's not guaranteed. That's not guaranteed. I see some people already guaranteeing that a Democrat will win the seat, but if living in Alabama has taught me one damn thing, is that to if never underestimate the hatred conservatives have for progressives. If there's one thing that living in Alabama my entire life has taught me, is that this is a state that is always quick to remind you they believe in the Constitution, and they're always quick to remind you there was the Democrats who fought to keep slaves, there was the Democrats who implemented Jim Crow laws, and there was Democrats that bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church. But then they will overwhelmingly vote for Roy Moore over Doug Jones for the U.S. Senate. Roy Moore, who also had allegations of sexual harassment and creepy ass behavior, who had been removed from office twice for defying the Supreme Court and the Constitution. They voted for him overwhelmingly more than Doug Jones, who finally prosecuted the remaining 16th Street Baptist Church bombers. And all logic flew out the window, all because Doug Jones had a D beside his name. Jones did win, but barely by the hair of his chinny chin chin. Only to lose re-election to Tommy Tuberville, someone who has done nothing since winning with 2/3 of the vote in Alabama, except keep Alabama the laughingstock of the nation. Never underestimate the hatred that conservatives have for Democrats, liberals, progressives, socialists, or whatever they decided to call us that day. So while I do hope that the redrawn lines will result in a Democrat winning in the new district, I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch. I have a feeling that conservatives just might show up in droves to vote, but we shall see. I might be surprised or I might be disappointed, but not surprised. I'm just hoping that the election in that new district will focus on actual issues. Because if there's one thing I've learned about Alabama, about the most pitiful thing about Alabama elections, and I know it's like this in other states, it's just Alabama's my home, it's where I've always been, is that none of the conservative candidates ever focus on Alabama issues. They will talk about Alabama values, but never actual issues. And by the way, Alabama values are just something about a gun, God, and owning the libs. That's all they talk about. Sometimes they don't even really have to campaign. They don't speak on anything. They're just content on letting the R beside their name on the ballot speak for them. And unfortunately, it's usually a winning strategy. Like in 2018, Kay Ivey was running for governor against Walt Maddox, the Tuscaloosa mayor. And Walt Maddox would be a Republican if he took two steps to the right. He could actually probably not change a single stance on anything and run as a Republican. People would be like, yeah, he's a Republican. So Kay Ivey just basically ignored him the entire campaign, refused to debate him or respond to anything he said. So of course Kay Ivey trounced him in the election because he had that D beside his name. Then in her re-election campaign, she truly didn't have a formidable opponent. Walt was a threat, so the best thing Kay could do was stay quiet. In 2022, she spoke more and released more ads, but they were so confusing because I thought that Kay Ivey was running for governor of Alabama. But according to her ads, she was running against Joe Biden. She had one ad that said that if Joe Biden had his way, we was all going to be speaking the Spanish. And then she ended it with, no way, Jose. There was another where she said that the way she was raised is that if you didn't have anything nice to say about somebody, you didn't say anything at all. And she said, so this is what I have to say about Joe Biden. And then she sat there quiet for the rest of the commercial, which I have to admit was fucking hilarious. But come on, what the fuck does that have to do with our state? What the fuck does that have to do with helping actual Alabama citizens? And she had one that pushed the stolen election lie because you have to align yourself with Trump in this state. If you don't, you're labeled a rhino and you're primary and you're probably going to lose the primary. And I can't forget her ad that's kind of become a series because she's made a few of them. It's at a target range and there's two guys shooting and talking about how Kay Ivey, all her accomplishments and how she's kicked so much liberal butt that her leg must be tired. Then it pans over to Kay Ivey and she's got on her red pantsuit and she's shooting nothing but bullseyes and she looks at him and she says, ain't no step too high for a high stepper. What the fuck's that got to do with Alabama issues? The on the libs rhetoric is even worse in the primaries because instead of trying to own the libs, now you got candidates who try to out MAGA each other. Like Kay's opponent, Lindy Blanchard, had one calling Kay Ivey a godless murderer because during COVID she shut down the churches and kept abortion clinics open. She had one where she offered to drive immigrants to the airport herself, and another one attacking Ivey for letting schools teach transgender, whatever the fuck that means, but also letting tax money be used for a whole transgender school. There's a school in Homewood, Alabama, in Birmingham, Alabama, the Magic City Acceptance Academy. It is for LGBTQIA plus youth, but it's open to anybody. It's a charter school. It's open to anybody. It's just supposed to help marginalized students feel safe and inclusive. And how can marginalized students feel safe when they're being attacked by politicians? How can any politician be okay with attacking youth? And by the way, Magic City Acceptance Academy costs $2 million a year in taxpayer money. There's a little under 2 million people in Alabama who are left-leaning. So if it makes you feel any better, conservatives, just think about it's $2. It's $1.25 from every left-leaning person in Alabama. None of your tax money goes towards it. And then there's Tim James, who used his whole campaign to basically attack transgender youth, even using footage of actual Magic City Acceptance Academy students in his ads without permission, leading to the school needing extra security to protect kids. He had one ranting and raving about MCAA hosting a drag show, even though when he was in school, he did Powder Puff, which is nothing but a fucking drag show. He claimed that Alabama children are in the crosshairs of hell themselves. He warned that we must curb destructive doctrine to protect Alabama children. He said they're like a cancer, metastasizing over time, infecting the minds and souls of children. They are symptoms of a cultural tsunami that has reached critical mass in America and, if left unchecked, are toxic to Alabama children. The three doctrines are like a beast with three heads, he said. Each head represents a lying doctrine, and all three taken together are an unprecedented assault on children. Then he cited critical race theory, transgenderism in schools, and yoga. Nothing about helping Alabama citizens, nothing about hungry children or children who have no access to health care or our dismal maternal mortality rate or infant mortality rate, only owning the libs, only hatred of others, only even hatred of children. By the way, the whole yoga thing, Alabama had a ban for years on schools teaching yoga, and Kay Ivey in 2021 lifted the ban under certain conditions. The new law allows yoga to be taught under certain conditions. Students are not allowed to say namaste, for instance. Meditation is not allowed, no chanting or mantras or induction of hypnotic states or guided imagery. It also requires English to be used for all poses and exercises. And before any student does a tree pose, they will need a signed permission slip. I wish I was making that up, but by God, we are Southern Baptist here. We can't be having that Hindu, Jindu creeping up on our children. Like I said, I wish I was making that up. In the Senate midterms, Mike Durant talked about Afghanistan more than he did Alabama. And Katie Britt, the eventual winner, she will follow the same blueprint as all other conservatives. She shot an ad on the southern border, which I'm pretty sure is not in Alabama. She had ads shooting guns and ads where she looked like a Stepford wife, talking about the radical left killing babies in the 9th month of pregnancy. And I actually have one ad that was my favorite during the 2022 midterm elections. I have one that is so good by conservative, I have to show it to y'all. Y'all need to see this. It is from a candidate, it is from Deborah Jones, who is a feisty little redheaded judge who was at the time a circuit judge in Calhoun County. She was running for the Supreme Court of Alabama. Y'all check this out.
If you're looking for a pro-Trump conservative fighter, she's 5 feet of concrete. Judge Jones once put a child molester in prison for 1,008 years. Why only 1,000 years?
Because the liberals wouldn't let me put him under the jail.
Judge Deborah Jones, conservative fighter, tough on crime, and she'll stand tall with President Trump.
Oh, ma'am. What? I know the man was a monster, but liberals wouldn't let you kill this man. What? Was you going to shoot him from the bench in a conservative supermajority like Alabama? How do liberals hold so much power that they wouldn't let you just kill a man? What? How does that make any sense? She actually didn't win her election, but she didn't even make it to the general election. She lost in the primaries to another conservative who ended up winning the general election with 70% of the vote. But see, none of these candidates said a thing about helping Alabama citizens. All they talked about was owning the libs. And that's the best way, unfortunately, to win an election in the heart of Dixie. Political campaigns in Alabama have one distinguishing feature. It's a total lack of interest in Alabama. I mean, it's the nationalization of politics, I guess. I mean, it's the Alabama Democrats not putting up candidates who are worth the shit. No, it's the Alabama Democrats not messaging well. That's a whole nother subject. And this the overwhelming need to be the MAGA-iest of the MAGA, to kiss Trump's ring, I guess. And it all leads to Alabama politicians ignoring the needs of the state that they represent and focusing on the obsessions of the most militant of their base voters. This is how a state with one of the nation's highest rates of gun deaths is doing nothing but making it easier for people to obtain firearms. This is how a state that needs Medicaid to keep its healthcare system going does nothing but resist expanding Medicaid, actually absolutely refuses to expand Medicaid, and sometimes tries to do even more. In 2017, every single representative from Alabama, every single conservative from Alabama voted to repeal Obamacare, voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which would have led to Medicaid cuts that would have further devastated health care in rural areas, a place that all those people say that they love and revere. It's never about helping the state's citizens, or improving their lives, or fighting for every person to be able to have health care, or access to health care, or life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, whatever the fuck they always talk about. It's all about shared hatred of others and owning the libs. It's about touting being self-reliant and telling the federal government to go fuck themselves while simultaneously being one of the states most dependent on the federal government. It is a welfare state demonizing welfare. The new district will represent roughly 700,000 Alabama citizens. And while there is a good chance a Democrat will win, I'm not holding out hope that it's a sure thing. I'm curious to see how this election will go. And all I want, all I hope, all I wish for is that whoever wins from whichever party wins, all I wish for, all I want for the new year, for Christmas, for anything, is that they will make improving Alabama a priority and not keeping Alabama the stereotype we have always been.